All right, then moving on, the United States is threatening to cut businesses that help Iran evade sanctions off from the American financial system. Now that puts China in a tough position. Beijing can reject Washington's demand, but Chinese banks still have a strong incentive to protect their access to the US dollar. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has warned that any entity helping Iran with money laundering or sanctions evasion could be cut off from the U.S. financial system. He specifically warned Chinese banks that facilitate transactions that are linked to Iranian oil. And now, President Donald Trump has hinted that Chinese banks could themselves face sanctions over their links to Iran. Asked whether he would sanction Chinese banks involved in such transactions, Trump said, "Who said I'm not?" Quote end. The warning comes under the Trump administration's expanded sanctions campaign. The U.S. has already identified China-based companies and individuals it says have assisted the Iranian military. China has pushed back. Beijing says it opposes what it calls unilateral sanctions that lack a basis in international law. China has also opposed U.S. secondary sanctions that are linked to Iran as illegal. And it says that it will take all necessary measures to protect its interests. But China also has a lot at stake. Before the war, China bought around 80 to 90% of Iran's exported oil. That accounted for about 12 to 13% of China's total crude imports, making China Iran's biggest trading partner. The bigger issue is the dollar. The US dollar still accounted for more than half of global payments in July. According to SWIFT, the yuan, by comparison, accounted for just 3.1%. In trade finance, the gap is even wider. The dollar accounted for nearly 80%, while the yuan had an 8.4% share. That makes losing access to the US financial system a serious risk for Chinese banks. China does have an alternative. Its cross-border interbank payment system, or CIPS, has expanded as Beijing tries to reduce its dependence on dollar-centered system. But analysts say that China is not looking to abandon the dollar system entirely. It is instead trying to build a financial hedge. The timing is also important because Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are expected to meet in the US late next month. Analysts say that Washington may not want to let the Iran sanctions dispute derail that summit. This leaves Beijing balancing two priorities, that's protecting its trade and financial access to the US dollar while also maintaining its relationship with Iran. But for now, the dollar remains too important to ignore.